Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of This Week in History on the Four Lads Network. And this week we've got a very special guest. In fact, he's not just a special guest, he's going to become our regular co-host of this very programme. Stephen Millar of the Rangers Archives. Stephen, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
No, our pleasure. Believe me, our pleasure. For those that have never found the joys of the Rangers Archives, there's a Facebook page, there's a YouTube page, there's a website. It's an absolute treasure trove of Rangers history. You'll find match reports, you'll find publications, you'll find pictures, you'll find video clips, you'll find almost like a history of Rangers for the last 150 odd years. It's absolutely wonderful. And I won't lie, I steal quite a bit from it to the research of this programme. So it's great to have you on board with us, Stephen. We really appreciate it. And have you watched some of the programmes already, have you?
Yes, I've watched some of the episodes, yeah. I was a bit late to the party. I didn't know it was on until maybe about episode 7 or 8. I've watched the ones since, all very good.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay, so this week we're going to cover July the 22nd to July the 29th. And for those that haven't seen the pod before, quite simply, we just go over this week, the dates of this week, and we look back in Rangers history and find an event, a player, a game that occurred on that particular date. And we're going to start with July the 23rd. I've written 22nd there, haven't I? It's the 23rd, just to show that I'm not very professional. So it's actually July 23rd for starting. July the 23rd, 1940. And that sounds a long time ago, and there's a lot of people saying, "No, I don't remember back then." But it's a date of birth. So on July 23rd, 1940, Kai Johansson was born in Denmark in a place called Odense. Signed from Morton in 1965 for £20,000. Stephen, before I go into a spiel about Kai Johansson, do you remember him as a player? Or do you have any memories of him?
Yes, I remember 65-66 was the first season I went to Ibrox, and he played in the game. It was a League Cup game against Hearts in August 65. And he did a terrific season with Morton the season before. He was a swashbuckling fullback, really an overlapping fullback before there was overlapping fullbacks. And so when the Rangers obviously sold Jim Baxter in the summer of 65, and they used some of the money to buy a right back, which seemed a bit strange at the time, but he was a good player. He was a good, steady player. He was virtually ever present, I think, for the 5 years he was with us. So, and obviously, he's most famous for his great goal that won us the last trophy that we would win for 4 years in the 66 Scottish Cup final. Yeah,
we'll certainly go back to that just in a moment. I'm just going to quickly throw his stats in for people watching. So, 238 appearances, 9 goals. So I was actually going to ask you, he played in my first game as well. My first game I ever went to in 1968 was against Arsenal in a pre-season friendly, and he played in that. But I was only 4-year-old. I'll be honest, I don't remember Kai Johansson as a player.
Right.
But it's interesting to me that a lot of the articles about him talk about he was one of the first attacking fullbacks at Rangers.
Yep.
In fact, some people describe him as like a winger that played fullback. And 9 goals in 238 games. If you look at fullbacks now, 9 goals in 238 games, people would say that's not an attacking fullback.
No.
So it must have been very different then. Even attacking fullbacks had wingers to look after.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and but he wasn't one for like getting in the box a lot. He was like he was a good shot, but he was maybe like he was playing behind like Willie Henderson, who was like more up front, and then like it wasn't a case of like the left back crossed and the right back was at the far post. It wasn't quite like that. And a couple of his goals were actually penalties as well. So so he wasn't like a Tavernier kind of player. So he did well though. He was quite steady as a fullback. He maybe wasn't quite as swashbuckling as he had been with Morton,
right?
But maybe just playing within the confines of the Rangers side at that time. And but he was a good attacking option for the group. And he was a good crosser. So
right. So obviously, I think we need to go to his first season though, don't we? So Rangers reached the Scottish Cup final. Celtic had won the League Cup. Celtic had won the league.
Yes.
Jock Stein's first full season as Celtic manager. First time they'd won the league since 1954. Only the second time in 20 years they'd won the league. And Rangers ended up facing Celtic in the cup final, the Scottish Cup final, which meant that if Celtic won, they'd have won the treble. Something they had never done before.
True.
First game was 0-0. 126,000 people. Younger folk will think, how do you fit 166 people to want a football stadium? But
just like that.
Exactly. 126,000 on the Saturday. No goals, which in those days meant a replay. It didn't mean extra time and penalties. It meant a replay. So the teams get back together again in the midweek. 98,000 people this time. And still 0-0 again up until about 20 minutes to go, when Kai Johansson had his most famous moment in a Rangers shirt. And thanks to the wonderful Rangers archives, we can actually show Kai Johansson's goal.
Cup final, and he is celebrated by scoring the first goal.
Oh, what did I do there? Oh, here we go.
Inside forward Johnston. Well, I don't know how McLean missed that one. And somebody's foot stopped that one. And it's a goal by Johansson. Well, there it is. Johansson, the first Danish player ever to appear in a cup final, and he is celebrated by scoring the first goal.
Sorry about the technical glitch at the start.
Still gives you goosebumps, eh?
So, as you mentioned earlier, that was the last trophy, the last proper major trophy Rangers won in the 1960s. We didn't win another one until into 1970. That goal, the picture of that goal, was in my bedroom wall for years.
Yeah.
As the only trophy Rangers won when I was a wee boy. So Kai Johansson had this special place in my childhood because he was the only trophy-winning goal scorer when I was a wee boy.
Yep. Another interesting wee bit about the final. Like, the Rangers fans weren't that sure that Johansson should play in the final.
Right.
Simply because in the January of that year, in the league match, which was played at Parkhead, Celtic won 5-1, and John Hughes roasted Kai Johansson, right? And so obviously the next time we played was in the cup final, and it was all about Hughes is going to do the same again. But Johansson played great both games, and Hughes was nullified, and it was obviously fitting that he scored the winning goal. Yeah,
and that was the game. Celtic Los Angeles, wasn't it?
It was on a frosty pitch. We'll not show the video of that.
No, we're not showing the video of that one. So that goal, a lot of people still think that he was the first overseas player to score in a cup final. He actually wasn't. There was a South African player called Stan Williams, scored for Aberdeen in the 40s against Hibs, but he was certainly the first overseas goal scorer in an Old Firm Cup final.
Yeah,
and he was the first overseas scorer in a cup final for Rangers.
Yeah, I think what they said at the time was he was the first continental player to score in a cup final, just to try and get around it because they couldn't work out who the South African was at the time.
So I think, regardless of anything else that he did in his Rangers career, and he didn't win, as you say, he didn't win anything else. He played in a number of other finals. He played in the European final in 1967 against Bayern Munich, which unfortunately we lost 1-0. He played in a League Cup final against Celtic, which we lost. He played in a Scottish Cup final against Celtic, we lost. But he I suppose he came along just at that wrong time in Rangers history when...
Yep, he was just one of the players that kind of encapsulated that 5-year period where it wasn't too successful. But he had some good moments. Like we played Borussia Dortmund in the European Cup Winners' Cup in the second round. They were the holders. They'd beaten Liverpool at Hampden 2-1 in the final the year before, and they were trying to play the ball out of defence, and he tackled one of their players and then hit a shot from near the byline. It went, the goalie should have saved it. He was England's Germany's World Cup goalkeeper, Tulkowski. He should have saved it, but he never, and it went in. So he scored a great goal that night as well. And then, but the other thing I remember about him from the playing time was his penalty miss against Celtic in the League Cup in 67, where we were winning 1-0. Henderson had scored early doors. We had to win the game to qualify for the next phase and knock Celtic out, because we were a point behind them because we'd had a 1-1 draw with Aberdeen, if I remember correctly. But 1-0 ahead, we got a penalty with 14 minutes to go, and Kai Johansson had scored against Dundee United the weekend before with a penalty, and he thundered it off the underside of the bar. But when it came down, Andy Penman was running in and was going to head it in, and instead Kai Johansson headed it instead. And obviously the referee gave a foul. Celtic scored 3 goals in the last 12 minutes and we were out. So
how depressing is that? You should write a book about that. Oh no, maybe not. So maybe the last thing to say about Johansson. So 238 games, 5-year Rangers career, ever present, played in all these big occasions, scored a win in a cup final. He's certainly got a place in our history. I found it really interesting that when Willie Waddle took over and he made Sandy Jardine the right back, and that's Johansson dropped out the team. He retired at the age of 30, which seems really weird to me.
It was, yeah. He went across to Mallorca, I think, to work in business. But he did come back to Rangers, but he would never get in the team. But I think when Waddle came in, like, he replaced Johansson with Jardine. He replaced Orjan Persson by moving Willie Johnson out to the wing, and he replaced Jerry Neath when he signed McCloy to make it an all-Scottish team. I don't think that can be coincidence.
Wonder if I've heard that one recently. Right, okay, so that's the first one for us today then, Stephen. Kai Johansson, not July the 22nd, like I said at the start, July the 23rd. I'll need to get my dates right for these things. July 23rd, 1940, Kai Johansson. And hopefully as the weeks go on, we talk about more subjects, maybe we'll introduce a video more often into the pod. That's just a little trial tonight. We thought we'd try a video. So I'm going to go into July the 24th. Not as long ago this time, one that's pretty recent, July the 24th, 2020. So this was during COVID. Rangers confirmed the signing of 32-year-old Nigerian international centre-back Leon Balogun on a 1-year deal with an option for a second season. Before I ask you about your memories of Big Balogun, Stephen, I'll go back to when I heard that he'd signed. It was because Katic got that knee injury and Steven Gerrard needed another centre-back. And when he brought in Balogun, I just read, what do I know about him? I didn't know anything about him. He's 32. He was at Wigan on loan last season and Wigan didn't keep him. And I'm thinking, he doesn't sound very exciting to me. Then he played in the first game of the season up at Aberdeen. The game Ryan Kent scored during the goal. We won 1-0. And he was a colossus that day. He was absolutely brilliant. I remember him clattering into a post to clear one off the line. And I remember thinking, why have I never heard of this guy? This guy's really, really good. And there we go, down the line now. 114 appearances, 2 spells at the club, all 3 domestic trophies. And I think a guy that the Rangers support really took to.
I think he was excellent with the support. You could see that he was giving his all every game, and really that's all you can ever ask of a player. Some of them might have limited ability, but if they give their all, then they'll do for me. But I thought it was an excellent sign. But again, that first game you mentioned up at Aberdeen, it was really, he signed I think the day before or whatever, and I was surprised that they actually started him because with Hollander and Edmondson on the bench.
Yeah.
So it was really surprising that they put him straight into an away game at Pittodrie and I thought he was absolutely terrific. I couldn't believe we had a centre half that could actually run fast. So he was terrific. He'd played in the World Cup 2 years previous with Nigeria, so he was no mug, but he just maybe had stalled a bit. Was it Brighton? He was on loan. He sent on loan to Wigan. Something like that. Maybe Brighton. I think
he's with a German team as well, wasn't he?
I think he played about 5 or 6 German sides during his career there. But I thought he'd signed for Brighton and then he went to Wigan on loan and they didn't want to keep him.
Yeah.
But he was a good, steady player alongside Goldson at the time, or whoever he played alongside. He always gave 100%, and he was a good. For Scottish football, he was a good standard of player.
Absolutely. If you look at that, is the 55 season, as a lot of people still call it. In effect, Connor Goldson played every game, and then half the games he had Hollander beside him, and half the games he had Balogun beside him, didn't he?
Yep.
And we only conceded, 13 goals in the whole league
13.
Absolutely. It's almost ridiculous.
Yeah. And that's the best defence we've had in history, probably for goals against. But they were really steady, but it was consistent selection. Helander, Balogun, Barisic, Goldson, and Tavernier until Tavernier got injured towards the end. Yeah,
and obviously he played his part in the run to Seville. Bassey had became the centre back by the time of the final, and he didn't play in the final. But he played in quite a number of the games prior to the final. Yes. I think probably his main one was the Red Star game, because he scored in that one, didn't he? Ibrox?
He did. He scored in the Red Star, and he scored in the qualifiers against Brøndby. From memory.
Yeah. So
I always feel he could have scored a few more goals, just given his height and his like get up and go kind of thing. He only got one domestic goal against Aberdeen in his second spell. And that was
remember that was in about the 95th minute. I remember it was right at the
right at the end.
Yeah. But if I think about after Seville, his contract was up, and Rangers decided, whether it was Ross Wilson or Giovanni, whoever decided the contracts at that time, decided they would just let him go, and he left for a season. And we replaced them basically with John Suter, and then we sold Bassey as well, and Yilmaz and Ben Davis came in.
Ben Davis, sorry.
So in effect, you lost Bassey and Balogun, and you brought in Davis and Suter and Yilmaz. If you think about what a downgrade that was defensively.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. Obviously, he was 34 at the time. There's no resale value. They're going for this model where Ben Davis, they thought, might have come on, but obviously was never suited, I don't think, to our standard of football or our type of football. And Yilmaz was the same. So it's just one of these things, isn't it? They'll never get every transfer right. It just seem to get more wrong than most.
We've hardly won anything since, that's all I know. And I suppose, but he did come back. And even right at the end of his Rangers career, he became a regular again when Ferguson became the interim manager. I remember him playing really well in a few European games under Ferguson.
Yes, and he played really well in the Skull Cup final against Aberdeen, our last trophy win.
Yeah,
I thought he was excellent that day. He was fighting in the net with the Aberdeen players in the last minute. So he always stood up and be counted.
I think the thing that, apart from the way he played football, which was wholehearted and gave 100% all the time, I think the very fact that he spoke so highly of being a Rangers player, and he seemed to understand what the standards expected of players were, and he understood how important it was to the supporters to win games, and he just seemed to get it. But for me, it's a shame that he wasn't 5 or 6 years younger, because I'm convinced that Derek McInnes would love a 32-year-old Leon Balogun right now.
I think it's exactly the type of player that Derek McInnes would like in the team. Yeah.
So 24th of July 2020, the beginning of a 2-spell career at Ibrox for Leon Balogun. A player that Rob on the pod had a pod called Unsung Heroes, and we were to pick an 11, and I actually put him as one of my 2 centre halves in it, because I think that he'll never be a Hall of Fame player. He'll never be a player that's massively remembered as years go on. But I've got a lot of time for him. I think.
Yes, absolutely. One of the few players in recent times, since 2011, that have won all 3 domestic trophies.
Yeah,
and they reached the European final.
Yep. So, yes, I'm sure he can. I think he can look himself in the mirror when it comes to his Rangers career, and I'm not convinced some of his teammates could do the same.
No, and he's never said a bad word about the club at any time. Even after he left the first time, where he probably wanted to stay.
Yeah.
He didn't burn his bridges.
Yeah. So Big Leon was July the 24th. July the 25th, we're going to go back quarter of a century. Seeing I say that. July 25th, 2001. It was the beginning of Dick Advocaat's fourth and final season as the Rangers manager. And it started with a Champions League qualifier away to Maribor, a team that we were to meet again in future years, away in Slovenia. We had 3 new signings in the team, and Rangers ran out 3-0 winners. Those 3 new signings were Claudio Caniggia, Russell Latipi, and Christian Nerlinger. So what do you remember about those signings that summer and the end of the Advocaat era then?
Well, I remember that obviously there was a bit of to and fro between Rangers and Celtic for Latipi, and he came to us.
Yeah.
I think Celtic were quite keen on Caniggia as well, but he came to us. And Nerlinger was the replacement for Alberts.
Yeah.
So that's what we were led to believe at the time, that he had a good left foot. They didn't tell us he was going to be as injury prone as any other player we've ever had. But obviously, like, they were okay signings. I think. I don't think they were. Obviously, Celtic had quite a strong team at the time. Big, strong players, and we were getting smaller players, Latipi and the likes. So they were okay, but they didn't really fill me with great excitement, if I'm honest. But obviously, Nerlinger goes down in history, didn't he?
You're going to give me the famous quiz question answer here, aren't you?
Yeah, the scoring in his debut in all 4 competitive competitions.
Yeah, there's nobody else in Rangers history done it.
No.
Scored in a league debut, League Cup debut, Scottish Cup debut, and European debut. You can actually throw in his Champions League group debut as well if you want and make it 5.
Yeah, against Stuttgart, yeah.
Which is really weird because he didn't actually score that many goals for Rangers, but he obviously liked to score in his first game in competition.
Yeah, they just try to create first impressions, eh?
Yeah,
they weren't always true then.
As you say, right, he's remembered for his injury record more than anything, really, isn't he? Latipi, it just didn't work for me. It just didn't work out for me. I thought he was a really talented, skillful player.
Yeah.
But he just wasn't suited to Rangers, I didn't think.
No.
In fact, remember he went to Falkirk. He was superb with Falkirk afterwards. He was great with Hibs and he was great with Falkirk, but I think Rangers was just a step too high.
And you'd have thought with bringing along better players like De Boer and Ferguson and that, then he would have, shown, but it just never quite worked out.
I remember doing a Q&A night with Big Marvin Andrews, and one of the questions, first question was, who was the best player you ever played with? And he gave Ronald De Boer as the answer to that. I played against, sorry. Ronald De Boer was the answer to that because he didn't actually play with Ronald De Boer. And then when they asked him who was the most skillful player he ever played with, Russell Latipi was his answer for it. The two of them played international football together.
Yeah.
But I think of some of the players Andrews maybe played with at Ibrox, and you're thinking, was Latipi actually more skillful than him? Maybe he was.
No, I wouldn't think so. He was a really good player, but not top level. I think he burned the candle at both ends, which I don't think really helped him. Yes, I think he enjoyed his life, if we could say that.
And the third one was Caniggia, who was a genuinely world-class player at his best. I mean,
yes.
In his peak years, he would probably be a candidate for a World 11 at one point when he was his absolute peak. I always found it amazing that he ended up at Dundee. I could never get my head around how a player like that could end up at Dundee.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I thought he was too old when Rangers signed him, but I thought Rangers got a right good player in him, and I thought he was really important this season. We won the treble under McLeish.
Yeah, he was. He scored a lot of important goals. He liked scoring against Dunfermline, obviously, but he was a terrific player. I think he really helped the other players up front. He had a lot of selfish running. He could hold the ball up. He'd win fouls. I thought the season we had him, he was terrific. But at the start, I was like, well, I think he was, he's over the hill. But I was wrong for that one, definitely. I think he was like Balogun, though. It was like I wanted him 5 years earlier, but we wouldn't have got him 5 years earlier.
He's probably in rehab 5 years earlier. To go.
Yeah. I think it was a DD manager's brother that knew Caniggia's brother.
Right.
That's how he got to Dundee. So.
So But if I go back to 2001 then, the start of Advocaat's final season as manager, the previous season had been a total disaster. Celtic won the treble, we finished 20 odd points behind. The dressing room seemed to have started deserting the manager at that point in time. Well, how do you think it all went so wrong with Advocaat? Because the first 2 seasons were just success after success, and it looked as if he had built something that was going to be in top for years and years, and it crumbled so quickly.
It did. I think there was a lot. Everyone lost confidence. The fact that obviously the rival was Celtic, and all they did was buy players that were 6'3". And so that's what they did, and they overpowered us basically. And I think the confidence sapped from the players that they didn't change our way. We still tried to play the football, but we just get battered by them. And there were some terrible results that we had against them. So I think the players' confidence was shot, and they didn't believe that the manager was the one to get them out of it. I think that's from watching the games and going to the games. That's kind of the feeling I got. We were losing games to, like I said, Dundee and Dundee United at Ibrox that we were playing absolutely horrendous. I mean, he bought Conterman in 2000 to be the big strapping centre half who had played brilliantly for Feyenoord in the Champions League, and that didn't work out. That was my thoughts on it. What about yourself? What do you think caused it?
I just think that he went too Dutch. That doesn't sound too silly. I think he created a split in the dressing room by having just too many. You're similar age to me. The Dutch national team is a team who have underperformed for years. They've had so often the best players in the planet, some of them, but there's too many individuals and not enough team players in it.
Yeah, a lot of fraction between the players.
And if I look at, I think Advocaat just put too many individuals in a dressing room that needed to be more together, and I think it fractured. But if I look at the 14 players that played that night, and you think this team won nothing, and they were miles behind again by the time Advocaat had resigned in the December. They were already out of the league by the time Advocaat. Yep. 14 players: Stefan Klos, Fernando Rickson, Craig Moore, Lorenzo Amoruso, Arthur Newman, Conterman, Claudio Reyna, Nerlinger, Caniggia, Tori Andre Flo, Latipi, Barry Ferguson, Neil McCann, Michael Moles. How the hell did that team manage to find? How did they?
I know. It's crazy. Terrific, but as you say, terrific individuals.
I think it took McLeish to bond them back into a team. Advocaat lost it.
I mean that game against Maribor that we're talking about, he played Conterman as a defensive midfield player, and Barry Ferguson was on the bench. Ferguson, I think, had just been coming back from an injury, but he played Conterman, and obviously Ferguson had to come on when I think it was Amoruso had get injured just before half time, and he shoved Conterman back.
Well, Conterman could play anywhere except centre half, as far as I'm concerned, as long as he didn't play there.
Yep.
He's a disaster as a centre half. So anyway, we won the game 3-0. I remember watching it live on the telly. 1-3-1 at home, get through. Although we didn't make the Champions League because we lost to Fenerbahce. 2-1. Yeah, which took us into at that time you dropped into the was it called the UEFA Cup? It was still called the UEFA Cup then, wasn't
UEFA
it?
Cup.
And we ended up beating Paris Saint-Germain in his last European Advocaat's last game penalties before he resigned. So he did go out in a little bit of a high with that one. But 2001, I think, was a bit of a testing time to be a Rangers fan.
It was.
And
there's been a few.
It's all relative.
There's been a few periods like that.
Yeah, I would imagine that sometime over the last decade, people would think of this as good days, to be honest with you. So that was July the 25th, 2001. Let's call it towards the end of the Advocaat era. Now, I know you've watched a couple of these shows, Stephen. I always throw a really old one in. There's always I'm greatly of the opinion that if you're going to do a history show covering 154 years, it shouldn't all just be for the last 30 years. So I
thought when you said you were throwing an old one in, it was me.
Oh no. I'm going to go back to July the 26th, 1920. A chap by the name of Ian McPherson was born in Glasgow. Now, Ian McPherson is not going to be a name, a player who will come up in just about any conversation about good Rangers teams, great Rangers teams, successful Rangers teams, because officially he only played one game for Rangers. Officially.
Yep.
At the age of 19, he joined Rangers in 1938. At the age of 19, he made his debut in August 1939 against Arbroath. And it happened to be the second last game Rangers played before war broke out, which meant that the league stopped and the authorities decided the football would continue, but it would be unofficial and it would be regionalised. So Rangers continued in something called the Western League for season 39-40. These are all unofficial games. So if you look at the official statistics in Rangers, then these games don't appear in it. Now, there's a debate we could maybe have another time about where they should appear in it, but they don't at the moment.
No.
So Rangers won the Western League. Ian McPherson, who was a right-sided attacker, he could play either right wing or inside right. He made 10 appearances and he scored 11 goals. So he had a bit of a goal habit for somebody that wasn't a centre forward. Rangers won the title, and for the only time during the war, that first season, the two regional winners then played in a playoff to decide a Scottish champion. And Rangers beat Falkirk in the final, who Falkirk won the Eastern League. So Ian McPherson won the Western League, and then he won the Scottish League, the unofficial Scottish League in 1940. And he also then played in the old Charity Cup at the end of the season against Clyde in the final, and we won that. So he got 3 medals by the time he was 20 years old. But I suppose his story really starts in the next season 40-41. Before the season started, he enlisted in the RAF. But until he was called up, he still played for Rangers. He played 4 games. He played 2 league games and 2 Glasgow Cup ties. He scored another 4 goals, which meant that when he was called up, and he was called up in September 1940, he played 18 games for Rangers and he scored 17 goals.
18 goals.
Which is really impressive.
Very impressive, isn't it?
And you do wonder if the war hadn't happened,
what would do?
And he was able to continue his Rangers career the way teenagers, the rest of the 20-year-olds throughout the rest of history were able to do, just what impact he might have made at Rangers.
Yeah.
But
you're saying he played 18 games. Rangers won 15 of those games. Only lost once when he played, and with 2 draws. And he played in one Old Firm game, I believe, against Celtic in the Merchants Cup semi-final before they beat Clyde in the final, and Rangers won 5-1. So maybe it was a lucky charm.
Yeah, he certainly made his mark. Although it was unofficial, and although it doesn't really show in the history books, there's no doubt there was a player there. There's absolutely no doubt there was a player there. But at the age of 20, the RAF called him up. He went down to Norfolk to train as a fighter pilot at Marham Air Base. And he ended up trained, and he became a Mosquito fighter bomber pilot. I don't know much about World War II. I don't pretend I know a lot about World War II. But the Mosquito fighter bomber was this little, really quick, agile plane which the RAF used for cross-channel raids into German territory. Ian McPherson piloted a little Mosquito fighter bomber plane, which was mainly made of wood, believe it or not, over the channel over 100 times. 100 sorties, as they called them. And in those 100 odd sorties, 3 times his plane got shot and hit. And 3 times he managed to get it back home. Once the landing gear was wrecked and he had to do a crash landing. Once his electrics were gone, which meant that the British gunners couldn't recognise him as a home plane. And they were firing at him to try to go home. But every time he managed to get back. It's maybe worth mentioning that a pilot of these planes in World War II was one of the most skilled, but also one of the most dangerous professions you could have in the forces.
Yeah, you can't imagine somebody at 20-year-old doing that, you know, like going to go over 100 sorties into M&E, you know, that's just crazy.
So something like 70% of pilots who flew the Mosquito more than 50 times didn't survive the war. That's how dangerous it was.
Yeah.
But he managed 100 and odd sorties. He was awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross, which is this main medal of valor for pilots during the war, in 1943. And then in 1945, they put this bar on it, which upgraded it to the highest level it could be. I'm just going to read out his citation in 1945. So, since the award of his Distinguished Flying Cross, Flying Officer McPherson has completed numerous more sorties. Throughout all of his operations, he has consistently displayed exemplary courage, tenacity of purpose, which together with outstanding skill and fine leadership are worthy of the highest praise. Think what age this guy was.
Yeah. It's just, it makes you so proud of what our forefathers did and gave up for us.
So Rangers lost a potential hero, because I think when you look at his goal scoring record and how successful the team were that he was playing in, he could have been a hero at Rangers, I think. But he became a different kind of hero. He became a national hero, a war hero. And I suppose sadly for Rangers, he got settled down in England. So when the war ended, he decided he didn't want to come back north again, and he joined Notts County. He only played for them for a year. Arsenal saw him. They signed him, and he became a member of the title-winning Arsenal team in season 1948-49. So he did eventually win a proper league medal. Yep. Unfortunately, it wasn't with us; it was with Arsenal. It's an amazing story. It's an amazing story, and I think that it's one of these names that officially he only played one game for Rangers, so he'll be a tiny footnote in a book somewhere. His story deserves to be told, as far as I'm concerned.
And it deserves to be heard by as many people as possible, because these are the people that make our club what it is.
Absolutely. So I've got a little picture in here for those that don't know what it looks like. This isn't him when he played for Rangers, though. That's him right at the end of his career, because it gives you his whole list of clubs there. Because after Arsenal, he started playing lower league and even non-league football before he gave football up completely. And he actually ended up, after his football career, going back to the RAF and becoming an instructor. That's how good it was. So Ian McPherson, born July the 26th, 1920. I suppose you usually finish somewhat as we say, we'll remember him, don't you?
We certainly will. Yeah.
So that was the golden oldie for this week. July the 27th is going to be a name that everybody knows. Hal Rendell will know Ian McPherson. We're going to go from one extreme to the other. July the 27th, 1984, a young player called Ian Durant signs S forms with Rangers. So S forms were basically a document that gave clubs first option on schoolboy players back in the day, before they were able to sign full-time professional contracts. So in effect, July the 27th, 1984, Ian Durant signed on as a future Rangers player. In my humble opinion, one of the best midfielders I've ever seen play for Rangers.
Without a doubt.
You're using Ian Durant, Stephen.
Yeah, without a doubt, he was one of the best midfielders we've had in my time of watching Rangers. And obviously, we all know what happened and all that kind of stuff. And we'll probably never realise just how good he could have been. But these first few seasons, he was absolutely just amazing. He would have been a world star, I think, if he hadn't had the injury. But you could see right away from just when he started into the first team.
Yeah, when he was the little thin guy with the curly hair. Have I lost you, Stephen? I'll continue talking about Ian Durant and hope that Stephen rejoins us. It looks as if we've lost his... Oh, no, you're back.
I wasn't aware that both of the videos were...
Oh, right. Well,
were dead.
Sorry.
No worries.
In my screen, you froze there, and I wasn't sure if you were still with us.
You froze in mine.
Okay.
Right.
So, Ian Durant, you're talking about it right at the start of his Rangers career. Then you could tell straight away that he was something special.
Oh yeah, definitely. Even the first games that he played at the end of 84-85 season, and then becoming a regular the following season. He's displaying his first Old Firm game at the 3-0 game at Ibrox in November 85. He was just running the show against with all these more experienced players like Cammy Fraser and him and Derek Ferguson looked as though they were going to be the midfield for the next 10, 12 years. So he was just a terrific player. He made his debut against Morton, April 85, and McCoy's hat-trick, and Durant get the man of the match. So that must tell you something. So, but again, all you could see was his hair. He was his hair. Not that we can talk much about hair, but he had a lot of hair.
Absolutely not. I think it's fair to say that two things for me stand really, really for Ian Durant. One is his big game input, if you like. The bigger the game, it seemed the better Durant got. And the number of cup finals he scored in, the number of big Old Firm games he scored in, semi-finals he scored in, big league games he scored in. And it was the engine that he had. But prior to his injury, he was a different kind of player after his injury, and I hate defining his career through that injury, because he was still an absolutely bloody brilliant player after it.
He modified how he played after his injury. He knew he couldn't do the kind of long burst and runs the whole game that he was so good at, but he modified his game. He was a great passer. The thing I always remember about him early on was his ability to run with the ball and pass it forward, which in the one without stopping to pass it. He was really, really good at that, especially for McCoist and like Robert Fleck and all this. And he was terrific at doing that, which I didn't see again until we get Gascoigne. Gascoigne was another one who could run forward with the ball and pass it. And Durant was doing that in 10 years before I seen Gaza doing it.
Yeah, trying to pick your favourite Ian Durant moment is going to be really difficult. But I'll give you a couple. Then throw a couple at me.
I'll throw it out. Well, favourite ones. Obviously, I think the goal against Celtic in August 86, as soon as his first game, and
Cooper reverse pass.
Cooper's reverse pass, Durant straight through, and then running past Cooper to celebrate with the East Enclosure. Where he used to watch the games from. So that one, obviously, is the goal against Marseille was a great goal. Okay, it didn't get us to the final, but it was terrific. His winning penalty in the Aberdeen Cup final in '87.
It was absolutely incredible that day.
But his goal, I think his goal was one of the best things of that game, because that showed him playing the ball forward, running on, getting a reverse pass, and outside of the foot into the goal. Brilliant.
I feel a little bit sorry for him, maybe the wrong expression, but I think he scored three goals in League Cup finals. So he scored the winner in Souness's first final, but his other two League Cup final goals were absolutely brilliant goals. But somebody scored an even better one in each game, and each game remembered for this other goal.
Super Ali and Cooper's free kick.
So there's Cooper's free kick. Everybody talks about that. Durant scored an absolute worldie in that game. The one you're talking about with the couple of wee 1-2s. Great goal. And then he scored this lovely goal against Hibs in the League Cup final. And
he lobbed it over late.
He lobbed it over late, and a beautiful goal. And then McCoist comes on half fit and scores an overhead kick, so nobody talks about Durant's goal again. It just seems unfair.
And also he didn't score, but his performance in the '93 Scottish Cup final against Aberdeen at Parkhead, where he was a man of the match, was fantastic. And that was at the end of a treble-winning season. He played most games. It just showed that he was back to maybe not his best, but he was back as a fantastic footballer.
Yeah. So I'm not going to dwell too much in the Simpson tackle and the injury and the 3 years out. I'm not going to dwell too much on that, because I think it takes away from how good Durant actually was anyway. And we could talk about that about another topic maybe. But for me, see when he came back after that injury, the treble season in 92-93, some of the biggest games that season, he was the absolute star of the show. The two games against Leeds, for example, especially down at Ellen Road, I thought Dennis Ellenody was absolutely world class that night. And this is the post injury, Yes, he wasn't box to box as much, but what a football brain he had that night. He was able to hold on to the ball, play the pass at the right time. I just thought he was superb. And then when we did get into the group, we talked about the Marseille game. He also scored a great goal against Bruges that night. That Scott Nisbet scored a crazy goal. So again, Durant's goal gets forgotten about.
Exactly.
He was tremendous.
Great player. Just as you say, the big games, it was as if he grew a foot, a foot taller, and just like the Leeds game, the one in Elland Road, he out jumps their centre half to head it onto Hateley in the second minute. I mean, you're going to get any of our young midfield or small midfield players now out jumping a centre half, and that's just will to win and desire to do well for the team, and he had that in abundance.
I'll just throw it. Everybody usually likes the stats. I'll just throw the stats in just now. 346 games, which would have been a lot more if it hadn't been for what happened in October 1988. 45 goals, which isn't as many as probably I thought it was going to be when I was. I actually thought it was going to be more than that. Played in 9 title-winning seasons, but he had less than 10 appearances in 3 of them. So I think
I count it as 6. I count it as.
I think it's 6. You never know. Some of these guys get a medal, even though
exactly. There's no rhyme or reason for it, isn't there? No. But I've got it down as 6 as well. 3
Scottish Cups, 4 League Cups, and 3 of those League Cups he scored in the final. So
remember one of his Scottish Cups was because McCoy's got injured in the warm up, and after he did 2 pints, but in the hospitality he get called down to be on the bench against Hearts.
20 Scotland caps. Only 4 before his injury. 7 with Rangers after his injury. And if I think of how good he was between sort of 92 and 94, 7 caps seems really little for me. And then incredibly, 9 caps at Kilmarnock after he left Rangers.
Yeah, he really did a good Indian summer at Kilmarnock. 4 years, I think he played for them.
Yeah. He was nominated for Player of the Year. Scottish Player of the Year when he was at Kilmarnock. And I remember his last game for Rangers was obviously that cup final against Hearts that we lost. Him and McCoy came on as substitutes in the second half. He was terrific when he came on. He almost turned that game that day. He almost managed to turn it for 2-0 to get his level. Member of the Hall of Fame. The word legend's used an awful lot in these pods, and I try and avoid the word legend too often because I think some players get called legends that aren't. But I think when history looks back in the career of Ian Durant at Rangers, if he's no legend, he's damn close to it.
Well, I think if you get 13 winners' medals and play for the club for 14 years, you can certainly be classed as a legend.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. So, July 27th, the schoolboy Ian Durant signs S forms for Rangers and went on to have that incredible Rangers career.
It's funny, just after he signed on the S form in July, the following week, he played against Trude Juniors for the reserves, and Scott Nisbet, Stuart Monroe, Robert Fleck, Andy Bruce, they were all playing, and he had just been signed as an S for him, and they thought enough of him to put him into the team. Funny
enough, I done a Jock Wallace documentary last year for this podcast, and I ended up talking to John Wallace, who these Jock's son.
Yes.
And one of the things that John was most proud of, his dad, was the number of young players that he helped nurture for Rangers, which I hadn't actually thought too much about until John had talked to me about it. And even when you think of the team that Souness took to the league title in 1986-87, the number of young players that really got maybe Derek Ferguson, Dave McPherson were under John Gregg to start with, but the number of games that Fleck and Durant and Stuart Monroe, I suppose not really because he was signed, but all these young guys that came through under Jock Wallace. Wallace might not have won much that second spell, but I think he laid foundations that done his proud.
We reaped the benefits in the years following. So definitely.
Okay, so that was July the 27th. I'm going to go on to the 28th. I'm going to talk about another midfield player. 1992, July 28th. Rangers confirm the return of midfielder Trevor Stephen from Marseille for a fee of £2.4 million, which was around £3 million less than Marseille had paid for him the summer before. So Trevor Stephen, signed in 1989 to start with by Graham Souness, the same summer as we signed Maurice Johnson. And I think it's probably fair to say that his signing kind of went under the radar a little bit that summer because of who else signed more or less at the same time. Really cultured, intelligent, calm, composed, clever midfield player who had played at the top for Everton for a number of years. He had won FA Cup, won the league, won a European trophy, lots of England caps. He was a top midfield player. English teams banned for Europe, which I think undoubtedly helped us signing him. 184 games over 2 spells, 25 goals, played in 8 title-winning seasons. Just before I pass over to you, Stephen, I done an interview with Mark Walters a few weeks back, which is on the pod for members only at the moment. It will go on to the public YouTube in a couple of weeks' time. And I asked Mark Walters in it, you played on a lot of great English players in your time at Rangers. If you had to pick one, who was the best English player you played alongside? And it was Trevor Stephen he went with. It wasn't Terry Butcher, it wasn't Gary Stevens, it wasn't Ray Wilkins, it was Trevor Stephen, right, who he basically said to me, anytime Trevor Stephen got the ball, I knew if I made a run, he'd find me with it.
Yep. He was an excellent player. He was kind of I always felt of him as a kind of, as an Alec McDonald type of player, not like a, hard and that, but somebody who made the other players play well round about him. He was the kind of the one that all the other players would love to play with, because he would do the simple things, but he could run, he could carry the ball, he could cross, could score. He was just again unlucky with injuries when he was with us. But when he signed in '89, I was delighted because he had been an excellent player for Everton for 3 or 4 seasons. Scored in the European final, and he was just a terrific player, a terrific player. But he played in the right wing, basically with England and Everton, and I think soon had seen him more as a centre midfield player at the time, and maybe utilised him there. But he was still, whenever he played, especially the first couple of seasons, I think he was a terrific signing.
He had this partnership with Gary Stevens at Everton, didn't he?
Yes. The right-hand side. They were telepathic.
When he did play in the right with Rangers, that partnership get kind of brought back together again. Yeah. I'm sure they played with England a few times as well. So, any particular games or goals that?
Well, obviously he scored the winner against Celtic in a New Year's game.
Yeah, 1993.
Yep, scored that one. It's usually goals that you remember about him rather than like outstanding. He played against Aberdeen in the League Cup semi-final in 1990. He scored the only goal of the game and ran the show, and he was centre midfield the night that.
That was a great solo goal. I remember that was when Butcher got dropped out of the team, wasn't it?
Yeah, get dropped out of the team. Yeah. So these kind of these are the kind of memories I've got of him as a player. The other thing I remember about him as a player is, when we won 9 in a row at Tannadice, he was still playing for Rangers at the time, but he wasn't in the squad for the game. And my dad was a chauffeur for littles at the time, and Rangers used littles to either collect the referees or take players places. And my dad took Trevor Stephen to Tannadice and brought him back, So I was speaking to him on the phone after the game and all this kind of thing. So, but these are the 2 games I mentioned are the kind of main ones. But he was still, a good European. We kind of struggled when the 3 foreigner rule came in the European games as well. So because we had the likes of Mikhailichenko and Hustra and
I remember
Dale Gordon.
He played against that night Scott Nisbet scored. I keep going back to Scott Nisbet scored the game. He played in that game against Bruges.
He did.
Him and Durant were terrific together that night. Especially when we went down to remember Hateley get sent off and we had to try and keep the ball a wee bit more.
And if you remember the weather, it was like it was raining the whole night. It was a mud heap, and the 2 of them were still going strong towards the end of the game.
I think that the goal I remember most for him was at Tannadice to win the league. 1990.
1990,
in his first season. And the main reason I remember that is I taped it in Sports Scene that night, and I was in the crowd. I saw myself. I wish I'd kept it. But you might have it, actually.
I will have. I do have it.
I think you might have it. I remember it was a cracking header.
Yeah,
and 15 yards right in the opposite corner.
You know what? Sometimes when I look at wee quirks, like the cross for Trevor Stevens' goal that night was a right foot cross from Stuart Monroe.
Stuart Monroe, that's right.
And then when we won the league at Tannadice, with a Loudrup header, it was a left foot cross with Charlie Miller. Total opposite of what you'd expect for a goal. Yeah.
A lot of folk actually would have forgotten that Trevor Stephen was still at Rangers in the 9-in-a-row season. A lot of folk probably would have assumed he was away before that, because he was out injured for a long time. He only played very sporadically in the last 2 or 3 seasons. I think actually I'm right in saying he scored the first goal that season, the first league goal, the 9-in-a-row season.
Raith Rovers, was it Raith Rovers?
Yeah. He scored the only goal. I don't know if it was his last goal for Rangers, but it was certainly the last one I remember him scoring for Rangers. But yeah, Trevor Stephen, I think one of the guys in the bus used to call him the Rolls Royce. He thought he was this higher level of player that just coasted through games. That's what he saw him as that. But what a career he ended up having. All the medals with Everton, all the caps with England, and all the medals with Rangers. So he's certainly done it right for himself.
Yeah, it was just a good signing. Just wish we could have seen the best of him, and when he returned, I think he won the league title with Marseille, even though
he did.
So he obviously was no mug to play in a game at Marseille for all their Bernard Tapie's match rigging. They did a stunning side, absolutely fantastic team. So and for him to be able to be a regular in that side tells you what the quality he had.
Yeah. So anyway, Trevor Stephen was July the 28th, 1992. We've come to the last one, July the 29th. Oh, from all these highs, we're going to go to a low. So I started off tonight, Kai Johansson, and I talked about a Scottish Cup final at Hampden against Celtic in front of 126,000 people. I'm going to go from that one extreme to as far away from that as you could possibly get. So July the 29th, 2012, after weeks of wondering whether we would have a Rangers to watch at all, Rangers finally take to the field as a lower league team and play Brechin City away from home in the Ramsden's Cup, or Challenge Cup, whatever we want to describe it as, and win the game 2-1 after extra time in front of a crowd of 4,000. So, where do you start with the summer of 2012 and start with that game, Stephen? Tell me where to start.
I've got to be honest. See, when I look back now, I can never remember being overly worried that we wouldn't come back. We wouldn't have a team. No, and maybe it was because I'd moved to England by that time. I didn't see the papers and that every day. But I always got, there's no way we're going to die. No way. So, I was always confident that we would play, but obviously you're desperate to get to the new season. So we play.
If I remember rightly, we didn't actually get our license to play till the Friday night.
Friday night, yeah.
And the game was on the Sunday afternoon.
I remember watching it live on the telly, going, "And is this really? Am I really watching my team?" But
no, is that really? I know. So because we didn't get the license till the Friday, we couldn't play any pre-season friendlies. So there was no pre-season friendlies because our license had been revoked, so to speak. We couldn't play any, and it meant that there was a couple of players who had signed and had to be called trialists that day because they hadn't actually been Rangers were unable to register new players yet.
Ian Black, was he one of them?
It wasn't. The other one for some reason was Andy Little, who I think must have left and came back again.
Right. I didn't remember that.
Little and Black were listed as trialists,
right,
in the official side of it. And I can only think Little maybe delayed his decision to stay on.
Right. I'm surprised. I didn't remember that.
So I'll read out the team from that day to give you the shivers. Right. So it's actually not as bad a team as it became a few weeks later. I think it's fair to say. I think there's 2 or 3 names in it that I think some people might not remember that they actually started in the lower leagues.
Yeah.
Because they left along with the rest of them. So Neil Alexander, Kirk Broadfoot, Doran Goyan, Carlos Bocanegra, who was the captain, Lee Wallace, Kyle Hutton, Barry Mackay, Ian Black, trialist, Lee McCulloch, Lewis McLeod, and Andy Little, trialist. McCoist only named 4 substitutes. He said he only had 4 more players he could put on the bench. He didn't have any more. Those were Carl Naismith, Robbie Crawford, who came on, and 2 unused substitutes were goalkeeper Scott Gallagher and Darren Cole.
Yep.
Oh.
It doesn't have to give you the shivers. But again, you would think that team would have walked it against Brecon. You know, where you've got Romanian internationals, American internationals.
Yeah,
and Kirk Broadfoot.
At least 2. Well, there's at least 2 Scotland internationals.
Yeah.
At least 2.
So yeah. I remember we signed Ian Black, who had just won the cup with Hearts. But then they didn't give him the deal that he wanted. So he came to us and we gave him the deal that he wanted on a 3-year contract. Even though we still owed Hearts 800,000 for Lee Wallace. And yet there he was starting that season for us in the 3rd division.
So the 2 players in the starting 11 that day that made their debuts were Barry Mackay and Lewis McLeod, both of whom became pretty regulars in the sort of the banter years, as a lot of people now call it. But there was 3 players who had left by the time the transfer window closed, and obviously that was Broadfoot, Bocanegra, and Goyan. Broadfoot had his contract terminated that summer, and he went to Blackpool. Goyan and Bocanegra both said they were going to come back and went out on loan only. They didn't actually leave that summer. Bocanegra went to Spain. Goyan went to Italy. But eventually their contracts get ripped up. None of the 2 of them came back. Understandably, let's be honest with you. But it's just a surreal day. Just an absolutely bizarre day.
It's just it's a time when sometimes you look back and you go, did that really happen? You know, were we really in the 3rd division? You know, but it is what it is, and you know, we can't change the history, and obviously we'll all feel that we were hard done by, but
So that summer changed my entire outlook towards Scottish football, and my outlook has never went back to the way it used to be. I remember years ago wishing other Scottish teams well in Europe. You'll never see me doing that anymore. I remember years ago, I would get up at all times in the morning to get myself to places all over Scotland to see Rangers playing. I only go to home games and Hampden games now when Rangers get money from it. I don't go to any away game that Rangers don't get money from. I just don't do it.
No.
I refuse to put money in the pockets of those who kicked lumps out of us when we were at our lowest. I just can't do it. Now, I'm well aware of the fact that the team needs the support, and I absolutely wish I could get myself to a place that I was going to go to Tannadice next week, for example. I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, you've got to stand by your principles and what you believe. So I've not been to an away game. The only away game I think I've been to since then is Man United a couple of years ago down at Old Trafford. So that was I got hospitality, so it was all paid for, so I didn't give them any money.
I have been to one cup tie since 2012. I went. Although in saying that, I got the tickets for nothing, so maybe that's okay. It was a game at Kilmarnock. We won 2-1 with a last minute goal with Nicky Clark scored right at the end.
Oh, the Scottish Cup game, yeah.
Yeah, Warburton was the manager.
We got the final.
Martin Markham got injury that night, I'm sure.
That's right.
That's the only away game I've been. But anyway, this podcast is about my bitterness. It's meant to be about Rangers history, so I'll try and park that to one side. So, but I suppose if you look at the names in that team, there's quite a number of them, let's be honest, who would never have played for Rangers.
No.
If Rangers went through the turmoil that they did that summer. But at the same time, there's others who potentially could have had pretty good Rangers careers.
Yeah, Lewis McLeod for one. You know, I thought was a good midfield player, but to be sold to Brentford for, was it 500,000?
To keep the lights on, basically. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I know.
But again,
actually could get his latest loan. I know.
I just wish we hadn't had to utilise Lee McCulloch up front as much as we did. But that's maybe, you know, they were just dealing with the cards that they had.
I think so. And I don't know whether in weeks to come I'll pick out very many lower league games as games to talk about. I very much doubt that I will, because for all that at the time we were full of defiance, and all at the time we said, no, we go down to Division 3, stuffed a lot of them. But for all that we did all that, I still think we're paying the price for it, even this far down the track.
Oh, yes.
It set Rangers back decades.
It has, yeah. I mean, obviously we're getting on about now, and I know I'll never probably get back to watching us win 9 in a row and all this kind of thing, but you know, let's hope that this season we see a bit of improvement and an actual chance to win some trophies to bring us back to the days from before. You know, we've had quite a few slumps during my time of watching Rangers and yours, Davey. So I think, you know, everything does come in cycles. This has been a long cycle.
That has, and as you say, let's hope at the end of this season, if we're still doing these podcasts, we're talking about title winning parties and stuff like that. And
let's hope so.
We're looking forward to the next one. Stephen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us. Did you enjoy yourself?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was terrific. Hope the viewers and listeners enjoy it as well. So just good to rabbit on about things that you love, and with somebody who's like-minded, you know. It's been
brilliant. I really, and as I said to everyone at the start, Stephen has kindly agreed to be a regular on the show going forward. So if you enjoy your Rangers history, you've now got 2 anoraks for the price of 1 going forward. Before I finish, obviously we need to thank the pod sponsors. So CBD Oil Scotland, LBJ Consultants, Metaclad Ltd, our roofing partner, Candid, Amrit and his ice cream, Elite Scooters and Aesthetics Lounge by Sharon in Duke Street, Glasgow, where I was born just around the corner from. Thanks very much to all the sponsors. Thanks again to Stephen. I hope everyone has enjoyed this week in history, and we'll be back next week to give you some more from the Rangers past. From Stephen, from myself, bye for now.
Bye for now. Cheers.
The Four Lads Rangers podcast is sponsored by Candid, LBJ Consultants, CBD Oil Scotland, Elite Scooter Scotland and Metaclad, Four Lads exclusive roofing partner, the Aesthetic Lounge by Sharon, in partnership with Black Rooster, Art of Gold and Rangers Youth Development Company. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Four Lads podcast is delighted to be sponsored by CBD Oil Scotland. Get a massive 30% off now for all their gummies and their oils. Go and check them out. These help with things like stress, anxiety, sleep patterns, mood, depression, even stuff like fibromyalgia. Go and check them out, cbdoilscotland.com. Use the code 4lads to get a massive 30% off. You enter right now and you'll be in the hospitality draw for tickets for Rangers versus West Ham, Derek McInnes's first game in charge, and you will get that opportunity not only to get 30% off, but you'll also be in the draw for hospitality tickets for West Ham. If you don't want to use the website, you can come into either shop here in Thornley Bank or in Kinnan Park. It's called Bits and Bongs. You go in there, use the code 4lads and you'll get a massive 30% off. We're delighted CBD Oil Scotland are sponsoring 4lads. Check it out and go and help yourself to some oils, some gummies with a fantastic 30% off.